Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the MAGIA Mindset. Today's guest has won 2 World Cups with the U.S. women's national team as an assistant coach. He is currently the head coach at the University of Oregon for the women's soccer team. It is my pleasure to welcome Graeme Abel. Roll the intro. All right, Graeme, thank you so much for putting in the time. I know, especially during 2020, it's been a unique year. I know you basically got you got hired in December 2019, getting ready to start your season with Oregon University. And right in March, we got hit with this, and it put something entering your first year on a unique spell. Again, we appreciate you putting in the time. Thank you again.
Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Of course. So one of the main things I wanted to kind of dive into, I think you were a part of a very, very historical run with our U.S. national team and getting back-to-back World Cup. I mean, on the female or even on the men's side, that is not an easy prize to win nonetheless. I wanted to kind of start off with the 2015 World Cup first. And I wanted to kind of, as a team, discuss it, but also the role Hope Solo and Carly Lloyd played in that. I know they had a huge impact. But what was the things from the outside in as a coach when you're evaluating that really stood out and allowed you guys, to dominate that World Cup? You guys did really dominate that World Cup. And there was only a few, even the teams that kept it close, you guys still had the threshold on it. If we can kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think it was unique. I mean, I came into that World Cup pretty late. I came in January, actually February of 15. Paul Rogers had left to go to the Houston Dynamo. And so the position was open. So I came in, like I said, February 2015. And the France game, actually, we lost 2-0 in France. And, Jill had been in for, I think she got in August, September prior to that of 2014. So she'd had a short run as well. But the thing that stuck out to me most about that team that was probably different was, the leadership of Christy Rampone and Abby Wambach. They established leaders on the team. So you had that piece. You had obviously other senior players with Hope and Carly. But the leadership of Abby and Christy was really, really, really powerful. And then Jill did an amazing job because obviously, with Christy and Abby and Shannon Box, weren't going to play significant minutes in that World Cup. So it was a different type of role for them than what they'd played in the past. So it was a lot of management on Jill's part in terms of, helping those guys through the World Cup and then letting them know they'd be ready for the roles when it came along. And obviously, Abby scored the goal against Nigeria that won us a game 1-0, which was an important goal and, finished us top of the group. So, they were the big pieces that came out of it that I saw just in terms of the leadership of, PSE, that's Christy Rampone, Abby Wambach, and then Shannon Box as well. Can't forget. And then how Jill managed those guys through the tournament.
Fantastic. And then now where it kind of segues is because you kind of joined that one towards the beginning stages. I think the biggest role you guys played was in between 2015 to 2019. I think that's the most difficult thing to do. Winning a World Cup now, coming together as a coaching staff. How do you balance the new squad to keep the fire going, to keep that environment enhanced? And obviously, national team is different than professional. You have them a certain amount of years. Can we talk about the in-between 2015 to 2019 and touching base on Jill Ellis as a coach, but you guys yourself, Graeme, in the coaching staff, what was the key components you guys were doing to kind of fine-tuning? Was it the scrimmages? Was it the player personnel? Were you looking for athletes, or was it a balance of the technical players? what kind of outside backs had to play the role for it? If we can kind of touch base on that from the 2015 to 2019.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had the Olympics in there as well, and Jill. I was in a meeting with Jill and the bosses and Tony Gustafsson, one of our other assistants, prior to the Olympics, and Jill told them, "Listen, I'm going to bring some younger players. I think we, Lindsay Haram was there, Mal was there. I think Sam Ewis was an alternate. And so we had younger players that went with us to that Olympics. And she said, listen, it may cost us the Olympics taking these players, but in order for us to win in 2019, we have to do that. So, once we got 2016 out the way, I actually remember specifically we were in a hotel room. We just got beat by Sweden in the Olympics. And we were talking as a coaching staff. And we said, we almost viewed the run up to the next World Cup as a sprinter preparing for the 100 meters in the Olympics. They prepare over 4 years, and they're not interested in running their fastest 100 meters until the Olympic final. And that's how we kind of described it. Was as we would go year to year, the rest of 2016 was about getting out the blocks. 2017 was about running the first 40 meters. 2018 was about running the best 60 meters. And then once we got to July of 2019, it was about running our fastest 100 meters. So we used that analogy of it. And then, Jill kind of threw a stick of dynamite in the squad, and blew it up to look at everything, to look at players, who could evolve for us, who could help us. Players like Abby Dolkamper came into the mix. She looked at a ton of left backs, a ton of right backs. We looked at different options in the goal with the goalkeepers. As much as they talk about Alyssa Nair playing a significant chunk of games, we would play scrimmages between the team. So we would play. I think Ali Krieger made the comment about the second best team in the world was our second team, our group of reserves. So we'd play against one another. We'd have different goalkeepers. Look at within those games. So we looked at just the best soccer players possible. Jill threw up, once she got kind of her pool of players together that she liked, she threw that up onto a screen, show which shape fit us best. It ended up settling on the 4-3-3. And then we went from there. So it was a long process in terms of looking at different players, spending a lot of time on the road in the NWSL, collegiate games, to find, obviously Tina Davidson made the roster. She was at Stanford, and then she graduated. Well, she opted out last year to go to the Chicago Red Stars. So looked at a lot of players, in training, and that's the thing. The environment with the women's national team is unique, just because the training environment is so brutal. They're so competitive with one another. There's nothing like it, on the women's side in the world, and that's what makes them the very best at what they do. So took a look at a lot of players in that environment, and we came up with a 23 that went to the World Cup.
No, I think those are the significant parts of when you look at it from the outside in. People like, man, having a U.S. position, it's such an easy position you have. You have so much players to choose from. There is so much talent within the country on the women's side, on the female side, compared to everyone else. There's so much supreme athletes. But sometimes it's kind of a flip side. It's actually more difficult when you have that much talent at your disposal to get it right, because the pressure is high. It's like World Cup championship or bust, kind of. That's how they're looking at it. What is it that was the biggest hurdle for you guys as a coaching staff dealing going into the 2019 World Cup? Let's say, because you did have to throw dynamite in it, you had to blow things up to kind of get the heated right. Did it stir up the pot between some players and the coaching staff that there's some things that you guys had to do right to keep it all together? Because team camaraderie is point, and to get it right, because in the end, you guys won it in 2019, so you guys didn't get it right. I want to know that one or two hurdles that you guys got over to make it all click, because that's one of the challenges when you do have so much talent at your hands. Is there is some obstacles that I want to know, because a lot of coaches that are maybe struggling within those times and they want to find it. What are those hurdles, and what were the unique tactics you guys used to bring the team together for the 2019 World Cup?
I think the main hurdles was, when you're disrupting a team that's been together for so long, and you are and Jill read a letter to them. I think it's out there if you want to research it. She read a letter to the group and said, hey, this is going to be difficult. Some of you won't be around for 2019. Some of you will not get called into camps for whatever reason. And I'm going to take a look at a new player. So that was one big obstacle right at the start. In terms of tactics, I mean, I think, obviously we played in the 4-3-3, and we looked at a lot of what Liverpool do in terms of how they were able to press teams. We looked at our personnel in terms of the pace we had, the IQ of the players that we had, the athleticism we had in the midfield, how good we were in the back line, our goalkeeping, etc., etc. So we looked at all those different pieces, and so we settled on the 4-3-3 and decided we could go after teams. And I think we matured throughout that. I think you see when we played France was a team we had difficulty with early on. I think if you look at the game in early 2019 when they beat us 3-1, I think if you look at I think we had 5 or 6 positional changes or different personnel on the field to what actually played them in Paris during the World Cup. So we looked at a variety of different things there. And then set pieces were huge for us. That was a huge tactical piece for us. We obviously have world-class delivery with Tobin, with Pino. And then we had unbelievable targets with, Alex, JJ, Lindsay Horan, Carly Lloyd. I mean, we had an embarrassment of riches when it came to that piece. So those are the big tactical pieces, and then just the details. The detail piece was incredible. I give Jill and Tony Gustafsson incredible credit for that, just because there were some hard conversations in there, but we settled on what needed to happen, and the details were met.
That's great. That's great. And for me, if I had to pick the 2019 World Cup, I think 2019 was a very special one for us as a nation, because we had some good competition. I think 2 teams really stepped up in England and France. For example, if we want to dissect France first, let's just go from the quarterfinal to the semifinal. France, I thought they were ready. That 2019, you can look at it, you're like, they're here, they want to take it, and they know they want it, and they want it bad, and they're coming in as a strong favorite. As a coaching staff, you guys, had an amazing first game to start it off, so confidence is high too coming in, and that quarterfinal is set up like a heavyweight battle. Whoever wins is basically, you're going to go and win the whole thing. As a coaching staff, what are you guys talking to your players to keeping them not too high, but not too low? What were the tactics that you guys tried to talk about and what France did well and you guys had to limit or eliminate? And then kind of what was their weaknesses that you guys said, you know what, this is the area, if we do well, we can capitalize and expose?
Yeah, I think we never really ever had to manage the players in terms of letting them get too high, too low, and things. I think it's a mentality within the culture of the program with the women's national team that they got their eyes on the prize. They never look too far ahead of it, though. They know that what they've got to do game to game. I think it's thrown around so much these days about the process, and what they do, every training session is on the money in terms of what they need to do to get better. So we never really had to keep them, even keeled through the tournament. Once the Thailand game was out of the way and, they moved on to the next game and we rotated players and they moved on to the next game. So they're incredibly professional that way. You never have any issues. I think with the France game, what was unique was, we wanted the France game. We didn't want to come second in our group. We wanted France in Paris in the quarterfinal because we knew that it'd be such a big stage. And the reality of it is our players, once they step on that big stage, there's no doubt how they're going to perform. So we wanted that. With regards to how we went up against France, we looked at a lot of different games. We looked at games they played in the past, and we looked at then one of the hit big diagonal balls, get into the wide areas. On the left side, they have Marjorie and Les Sommer, who was so good. And at times, Henri would join on that side. But we also knew that they would expose their two centre backs. Their two centre backs didn't like dealing with pace at all. Wanted to drop away. Jill actually recognised it with Reynard. Me and Jill were in Kiev in I think it was the 2017 Champions League final. We went out there to go watch Mo play for Lyon, and we were watching Lyon play. I think it was Wolfsburg in the final, and we noticed just how she didn't deal well with pace. Didn't want to deal with pace at all. So we identified that piece in terms of negating the centre backs from playing out wide, negating them playing through the central area, try to frustrate them, and then hit them in transition. And you look at, I think it was the free kick for the first one. We got them in transition after the throw-in, and then ultimately got them in transition for the second goal as well.
No, I mean, yeah, I think like the game, it felt like the game plan that you guys had, you just came off momentum and you hit them with that first punch and they kind of got rattled. You saw it, and I think after that first goal, the free kick, it kind of, the momentum was there. You guys were going at it, even though they made it 2-1. It was kind of a 2-1 where you guys knew where you guys were coming in, and that was huge.
The big thing there was, it was, set piece, the detail that we put into set pieces, between myself, Tony Gustafsson, and Steve Swanson, our other assistant, we'd spend 3-4 hours in a room arguing over the position of one player. And it went down to that detail with regards to it. Jill gave tremendous trust in us to look after the set pieces and get that piece right. But it was, even when they were attacking us in those final areas, we'd spent so much time setting up the back line and the goalkeepers in terms of how they defended the 18-yard box. But even when they were coming on top of us, we still felt as though we were under control. And we still felt as though we could get another goal. I think with the goal that we scored, the third goal, I think it was, that I think maybe Tobin scored. I don't even think that ended up being offside. So it was something we felt in control throughout.
No, yeah, I mean, both World Cups, I think, even if you talk about 2015 in Japan, there is such a athletic superiority that we have as a nation on our female game. I mean, it doesn't feel still that the world has really put their hand on the female athletes within our country. Like, it is a different level too. Going to our England game, I think that was a very unique game. I think that game, in a funny way, you think the France game was the heavyweight, but England at one moment had us with that whole penalty kick. I think you can you dealing with our goalkeeper so well. She wasn't really tested in the World Cup, but when she had to step up, she came up big, and that was huge. That save, and there was one more. She comes in big. I think it was going upper V, one hand up opposite way. She saves it, and those are the moments where it can change the momentum, give the nation hope, or it can break the nation's back. And I think those saves really, you look at the players on England, and they were like, what are we going to do? Like, that was it, to take the lead, to take the tie. What can we dissect that game a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we were surprised England changed kind of where I think they put Paris in the 10, Nikita Paris in the 10. I think Rachel Daly played out wide with Lucy Bronze on that side. So we were surprised that they changed for us. They obviously thought Pino was going to play. So they tried to do something there to try and expose us on that side, just because, when it was Pino and Donny on one side, we weren't perhaps as defensively strong, just because, Pino's tendency is, probably a bit more like Salah does for Liverpool. It isn't necessarily to come back and defend. It's a little bit to stay higher in transition. So, we were really surprised that they decided to change that piece up. But I think the big thing there early on was, and we didn't do it a lot, we looked to go behind them in the first 10 minutes, looked to go direct in behind them. We felt as though if they were prepared to come out and press us, that it's very easy to be brave and press a team when you're going forward. But if a team looks to turn you and going behind you early on, then it kind of puts you on the back foot a little bit. And then I think we identified that maybe between the two centre-backs, Alex could cause those two problems. You saw that with the goal. Alex drifted off to the weak side of Millie Bright, and then we just dropped the ball over the top of her head and for Alex for the header. So we looked at specific areas where we could get in on them, and again prepared the group. And I think when you talk about the athletic side of things, I think the world has definitely improved. Again, this is where I give Jill credit. You know, in 2017 we went and played Norway and Sweden over there in Europe. Then we went and played at the end of 2018. We played Scotland. We played Portugal. You know, all of those games ended up in 1-0 games. Then we went and played France, Spain. We got beat by France. Then we beat Spain. And again, another 1-0 game, all of them in Europe. So we knew how difficult it would be to play in Europe against European teams, both on the athletic side and now playing them because they've got really, really good IQs as players, you know, as nations as well. So again, that credit goes to Jill in terms of setting up that type of schedule.
No, for sure. And then before we transition to the next one, and we're on the national team, working alongside Jill. Okay, I think a lot of people from the outside, based on if they've gone to her seminars or any aspect and hear her, it's a different perspective than from you, Graeme, that's worked alongside in the locker room, talking tactics. When you review with Jill, that has accomplished so much, I think probably the most accomplishments on the women's side for the national team. What are the key qualities that stand out from her that you've been impressed by, that maybe you've heard about from a distance, but until you worked with her, you're like, you know what? These are her qualities that really make her special and got to her to where she is. And I think that will give people perspective of how they want to get there. Is these are important qualities to have as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, she cares so much. That's the big thing about Jill. You know, she genuinely cares. I think you've got two sides of it. You know, you've got the playing staff side, and then you've got the coaching staff side of how she managed things. You know, the US team's not an easy team to manage. You look at the playing side of it, but they're really not just soccer players. If you look at their rock stars, you know, every game we went and played, we were like rock stars when we turned up. So it was a different animal in terms of what you were dealing with as personalities, and that's not easy. We always liken kind of our team to a pot of water in terms of you didn't want it to boil over. You wanted it to simmer there right where it was just simmering hot the entire time. You never wanted it to die down and cool off. So she had to manage that group and continue it to simmer that way. And that was a lot of individual conversations, not easy conversations at times, knowing when to leave certain things alone, knowing when to step in and have the conversation, leaving certain players off of certain rosters, you know, at certain times to give them a kick up the backside, bringing certain players back in. And, you know, Mo made the squad late, you know, bringing that player back in, bringing Kriegs back in after I think she'd been out for 18 months. So that management piece was incredible. And, you know, she isn't given enough credit for that, in my opinion. And the other thing was the staff. You know, she surrounded herself with people who, you know, Tony Gustafsson, Steve Swanson, Don Scott, myself, BJ Snow, people who were not just yes people. And that's difficult, you know, and that was something I learned a lot from her where, you know, we were allowed to challenge her, you know, behind closed doors. I mean, we had some pretty heated arguments at 4 a.m. in the morning, you know what I mean? And during all aspects, whether it was, you know, squad selection prior to the World Cup, once we were in the World Cup, I mean, you know, we were going on 2-3 hours sleep at times. And like I said, they were pretty heated arguments. And so she really managed the coaching staff exceptionally well in terms of that piece. A lot of conversations offline. But then, like I said, once we were in a room together, she allowed people to have their opinion. So, you know, unbelievable coach on the field, but her management of people is not given enough credit.
Graeme, I truly appreciate you sharing that, because I think sometimes we think when we talk about Man United, it's Sir Alex Ferguson. When we talk about if it was Chelsea's early years, it's Jose Mourinho. But people don't understand it's just not one person. It's a coaching staff. It's a front office, especially at the highest level. Everyone needs to be elite. Everyone needs to be top notch. And whoever's the head, whoever's the leader, needs to be a strong enough personality and comfortable with themselves to bring in sometimes smarter individuals, better than them, or strong individuals that because when challenge happens, when that environment feels at times uncomfortable because you're being questioned and you have to think deeper, did I just get questioned that I doing things wrong? Because that's part of growth. When you're on a team field and your players at practice, the second team could be the starter somewhere and they're going for you, that's making us better. Same thing, I think you just said it. People think it needs to only be the players. If that environment is with the coaching staff, that's another special ingredient. And I think people tend to forget, wow, Jill Ellis is so good. But the coaching staff behind plays such a significant role. And kind of, I want to transition next to our next topic is the mindset, the mentality. And I think you being at the college game at Oklahoma, Wisconsin, this is Division I. For on the female side, especially in the U.S., it's still high level with the athletes you deal with, and then later transitioning to the U.S. national team. The coaching staff you deal with, the personnel, because of these events, are at the highest. You know, the reason I say at the highest, because some people watching it from TV, maybe their career is not the most elite environment. They don't know what makes the coaching staff tweak. They don't know what makes the players function the way they are. Why are they achieving? They think it's just showing up because they're lucky. Oh, they're given the God-given talent. But I am a firm believer it's neck up. I think you're given a certain extent of talent as a player, as a coach, but there's a mentality. I want to kind of, on your perspective, you dealing with so many elite individuals, working, observing players, what is the mentality behind it that makes someone the tip of the arrow, the most elite of the elite?
I think we had someone who came and spoke to us actually with the women's national team, and he turned around and said, you know, at the highest of the highest levels, you know, from the neck down, like you said, the hardware is all the same in terms of, you know, everyone's got the, the speed, the strength, all the different pieces like that. But it's the software up here that makes the difference. You know, I think, and it's one of the things I brought with me to Oregon, because it's one of the things I took from the women's environment was the ability to raise the bar every single day, and the ability just to do this and climb. And, you know, we looked at the whole marginal gains theory. You know, we looked a lot at Dave Brailsford with the Team GB cycling. You know, when they had their transformation from the Sydney Olympics all the way through the London Olympics and the Tour de France that they've won, we looked at, you know, their philosophy of, 1% of everything that they do, making that better every single day, you know. I mean, you won't believe the things that, you know, the women have, you know, with people traveling ahead of the team with, you know, individual bed sheets for the players. So they have their own specific bed sheets, specific pillows. The amount of work that Dawn Scott did in terms of, you know, nutrition shakes. I mean, she had individualized nutrition shakes through different companies and things like that for every single player. So it's all those little, it's squeezing everything out of the environment that they can every single day. And it's a challenge as a coach because you've got to be on top of your game every single day. You know, it's, you know, I've said this to a number of reporters. I thought I was a good coach when I went into that environment, and I quickly realized that I was flawed in so many areas. The ability to present in front of players, you know, the ability to, you know, when a player questions something, have the answer ready to go, be able to pivot, you know, the vulnerability piece to say at times, I'm wrong, you're right, or what do you think? You know, you're the world-class athlete, world-class player, not me. You know, what do you think? You know, I think you see that a lot with, you know, Steve Kerr is one, you know, for example, you see him asking his players, you know, what do they think? So it's just that day-to-day environment that they have that is just incredible. And again, I think it doesn't matter what environment you're in, collegiate environment, club environment, youth environment, high school environment, you can hold your environment to a certain standard and then make sure that bar raises every single day. And it's exactly what we do here at Oregon.
No, that's so great how you elaborated on you thought you knew it all until you go into an environment like that, and kind of the humble pie, the humility gets checked in. And that's why as you go and start meeting higher people, you realize, man, they're great human beings. They're so humble, because when you're going higher and higher, you get reminded that, man, I thought I know it all, but I still need to learn more and more, because either players challenge you because they're elite, or coaching staff, because you're surrounded by everyone that kind of knows your level or might know more. I heard, I think a couple interviews you've done, that people are basically saying you're taking a step back. I actually disagree with that, because I believe this is your first head coaching role that you've been due in time. You truly deserve it, based on all the experiences you put in. And basically, as a head coach, it just shows what you just discussed about. You're starting at the beginning at a Division 1, and I know you have personal ambitions, but it's the first step. Same way you started as an assistant coach at a Division 1, and you built there. Now you're starting as a head coach, and with a huge amount of experience with dealing with the best. I want to now transition to you as a head coach. You're starting your program. You're starting to build a program. I want to kind of know more about Graeme Abel as a head coach in philosophy, coaching style. Where does it come from, and what is the plan of you putting that curriculum together?
Well, the beauty for me, I mean, you touched on it, a couple of minutes ago. The beauty for me was I didn't have to leave the women. I had a contract sat there, and so I was literally minutes, maybe not minutes, a couple of hours away from signing a new contract, and I got a call from Oregon. And so I think, you look at you're taking a step down, coming to the collegiate level. Everybody knows, the University of Oregon and everything that we have, this isn't a step down at all. This place is primed for success. Now, our program's never had the success. I'll be honest. I mean, I tell recruits all the time, we've not had any success, but you look at what everyone else does around us in, all our various programs, and you're like, okay, it can be achieved. So it was once I actually met all the people here, I knew all the outsides, the facilities, and all of those things that you see from the outside. Once I met athletic director, senior women's athletic director, you then start to see the environment going, okay, I can replicate certain things from all the experiences that I've had in the past. But, when you start to talk about philosophy, what am I like, you only have to look at celebrations to know I'm a passionate person. There's definitely a screw loose upstairs when we score a goal. So, passion, caring about our players, having the right environment where they can evolve every single day, whether it's on the field, off the field, so whether when they graduate here, whether they're going on to something, still within the game, or they're going on to something outside of the game, making sure that we've got the right environment that sets them up for success. The playing piece is the playing piece. Everybody wants to know about that piece. When you talk to recruits, it's, what formations you play, what style you play. But it's more than that. It's more than that. So I think as a program, my philosophy, like I said, I tell all our kids all the time, if you're not passionate about it, don't do it. Go do something else, because you're never going to do it to the best of your ability. So and I think when it came up to the two again, when I had the chance to stay with the women's national team or go to Oregon, I think the passion piece definitely weighed in. And I think after winning 2 World Cups, you're going, okay, I'm ready for something new. And Oregon's here, and it's getting ready to take off. So it's the passion piece is huge for me.
No, that's huge on that. And it's funny how you say there's so much things that go into it. And I agree with you. I think depending on what players you have, imagine like Liverpool or Barcelona, if we talk on the men's game, everybody can't play like Liverpool. Everybody can't play like a Barcelona in the 2008, 2012 Barcelona time. If you don't have those players, a lot of those players are so technically sound. When you squeeze them in a one-on-one, they're able to get out of it. So I think it comes down to every coach has a set philosophy, but you have to adapt based on that group and generation you have. I want to kind of talk about now, because this is a new challenge you're in from the national team to the college. You have players for 1 year, 2 years, some 2, some 3, some 4. How is it? I know you've been there as an assistant coach, and you know the concept of it at the Division 1. What is it that you want to kind of mesh from the national team experience to here in, let's just break it down in player management, periodization as well, because the college game is just a unique animal. And then how do you try to maximize your players if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What is it that you try to put into place to be flexible?
When the beauty about going collegiate to the pro game, international game, whatever you call it, back to collegiate is, those 5 years away from the collegiate game, I spent a lot of time looking back at it going, well, there's a good chance I'm going to go back to it. What do I want it to look like at any given point? So I spent a lot of time reflecting on what did we do, what didn't we do. One of the big things that I came back to was we didn't put enough time in with the players, in terms of the off season. We didn't make them better enough. We were so busy recruiting that we lost sight of, hey, our student athletes are right in front of us here. We can affect these guys right now for the next 4 years of their career. However, we're worried about a kid who's 3 years away from us even getting on campus. So putting into player development model, the unique thing about Oregon, I didn't realize the benefit of it until I was actually into the job, the full benefit of it. We're a quarter system. So, once we are done with the season, we then, start up again in January. We can go through the start of March on spring break, come back, go April through the end of May. So very similar to a Bundesliga model in terms of that setup, in terms of that calendar. So we're able to go into specific performance phases and then development phases in terms of how we manage the player development piece. Obviously, performance being August through December in terms of our playing season. So I just felt going back into a collegiate job, it was like we have to maximize the potential of all of our student athletes, no matter whether, whatever role they have on the team. From day one to, the very last day that they're with us, they have to become better as athletes, as students, and as people. So we put that thing in place. When you talk about the periodization, I was lucky enough to work with Dawn Scott for, 5 years, who is the best in the world. It's as simple as that. And so I when I came on my interview here at Oregon, I'm like, okay, how do we bridge that gap? And there was no gap because of the people we have here. We have our own sports science, team here at Oregon that has been phenomenal. We had 2 months with the team before the COVID piece hit, and the physical gains that we made with the team in that time were phenomenal. And it was based on playing. It wasn't based on running them, up and down, up and down, up and down in an old school way. It was based on doing it with modern methods, some methods taken from the women's team, some methods taken from other teams that we'd seen around the world, and, other environments. I had the chance to go, visit when I was with the women, men's environments, women's environments. So taking all those things, throwing them into the mix, asking our sports science team to see if we could replicate it. And what they did was phenomenal. The guy's name is Ben McKay. He's an Australian guy. If anyone wants to look him up, he is very, very, very good.
How, if we have to touch base on that, how vital is it? Like, if this is something you touched on with Jill Ellis doing well, and I think you kind of grasped it as well. You coming into Oregon, knowing your sports performance director, knowing your assistant coaches, and I know for some head coaches it's hard. That simple word, trust, putting that trust in your staff and saying, you know what, that's your cup of tea. That's what you know best. What you tell me, I'm 100% with it. What is it that some coaches fight with, and you have to say, you know what, yes, you have to make the final decision, but you also put these people in these positions to help you. What are those things that as a coach you have to kind of play with?
One of the things, it was reflecting, in the 5 years away from it and then coming back into it, it was that we had to put all aspects of what our kids deal with on a daily basis, with the soccer piece, the academics piece, the life, the wellness piece, the medical piece, the performance piece, the administration piece. We had to pull all that together. And so we had to do it where, everybody meets together, where we know exactly what's going on with every single kid, so we can all be on the same page, so we can make sure we serve our student athletes the very best way possible. So that was critical, that we got everybody on the same page. I meet a lot with all members of our staff, setting out their roles, what the expectation is for them within our program. What's different now with college is everybody falls within your umbrella within the NCAA. So if they get it wrong, it ultimately falls on you. So Yeah, so I just think, highlighting everybody's job description, their roles, making sure everybody's on the same page, just so everyone can fulfill their role the best way possible. And again, it's to serve our student athletes the best way possible.
No, fantastic, fantastic. And we like to do this with all of our guests after having a good dialogue with them, is to finish it out with a fun question. It gets to know our guests better, is to ask you, what's your favorite team of all time and your favorite player of all time? And it can go, obviously, we're in a football background, soccer background, so usually it'll be in that world. But it's a green light to attack anything, because sometimes we grow up in different parts of the world and there's someone that we tied to. So I want to kind of, again, touch base. Favorite team of all time and favorite player of all time, and elaborate, how did that come about?
Favorite team of all time? Well, I'm a Liverpool supporter. I grew up in Liverpool, born and bred. So, I probably can't get past the team that's just won the Premier League right now. I think in my lifetime that I can remember, definitely the best Liverpool team. And when I was younger, the 85 team, the 84 team, 86 team that did the double with incredible teams. As far as a player goes, probably Bruce Grobbelaar. He was my hero growing up. I was obviously a goalkeeper growing up, so he was my hero. I got to meet him quite a few times. But he, obviously England got the ban on playing in Europe. So he got to play in a few European competitions for Liverpool, but never, they probably would have gone on and won more European championships, more European Cups, Champions League, whatever it was called back then. But he was my hero. So the clown goalkeeper, they called him. So he was incredible.
No, it's truly great. And it's funny how you touch on Liverpool. How great is this team? Even if you're not a Liverpool fan, you love the game. How great is this coach, Klopp, and what he's implemented, the culture he's created? And then, as a supporter, this is pretty. I support Ajax, I support Juventus as a thing, but sometimes they play a brand that if you weren't a supporter, it's harder to like. But Liverpool right now, this is some beautiful football to observe.
Yeah, he's built a team that can mix it up with anybody. The 4-0 against Barcelona, they were incredibly direct. They didn't. They were direct and went for the second ball and set pieces. They can play teams where they can knock it around on the floor, and so he's built an incredibly versatile team. I think people talk about them as being a pure counter-attack team. I think if you read his book about Bring the Noise, about where teams are prepared to sit on them and they need to change it up, and so he's now developed that piece in terms of the players that he's recruited, and then his ability to manage the players is phenomenal. So it's a special team for sure. I think coming in at Liverpool, there's so much. The weight of history is incredible, and they've wanted someone who's going to win the league now for, was it 30 years? That was the last time that we won the league. So I would have been 9 at the time. That's about right. So how he handled that history, how he handled it for the players, it was incredible. So I think we should appreciate it, because, you look at these teams that are probably on 2, 3, 4 year cycles these days before they cycle out and, they hit their peak and things like that. So we should enjoy it for the next couple of years, because they are a heck of a team.
No, they are. And it's great that when we even talked about Jill or Klopp, we talk about how they manage people. And I think at that level, you got to know your X's and O's, but you end up hiring your staff that knows very meticulous X's and O's. Your key quality got to be a people manager. I think that's why they call it a manager. You got to be a person that can manage as a leader. And I think that plays a huge role when you get to that highest level.
Yeah, you've got to be able to motivate. It's any aspect, you know what I mean? You got to be able to motivate people, any walk of life, and get them to, again, we spoke about earlier, just continue to raise the bar every single day. If you can do that, then you're on your way to success for sure.
No, fantastic. Graeme, it's been such a pleasure talking about the beautiful game with you. I want to kind of appreciate on my end for having you coming on as a guest. And I want to kind of give the floor for you to close. Anything you have going on personally as a coach. I know this is any message you have for our viewers. Just I know it's tough times right now. From your perspective, to kind of share with our audience to get motivated in this beautiful era that we're living in.
No, I would. The first thing I'd say is wear a mask. We all want to get back to playing and training and things like that. So let's all do it. Let's all take responsibility for it and do our part to help get the country back to where it needs to get to in terms of people healthy, people out of the hospitals. Keep the infection rates down and things like that. So I think that piece is key. And then hopefully we can get, like I said, we can all get back on the field and training. And if anybody ever has any questions about things, please feel free to reach out to me. That's more than welcome at any given point to reach out, and I can answer questions for people as well.
Thank you so much, Graeme.
Not a problem. Thanks, Shawn.